Hi, Shannon.
Hi.
How's it going?
Great, thanks.
I'd like to just start by saying that thanks to Mitch for this awesome event. We love you. And I was excited to get invited to speak about this, and I was excited to share the stage here with Shannon because, you know, we're a couple of Portland-based companies that actually don't manufacture our products in Portland. We design our products here and run our businesses here. So the kind of planner that I am, I reached out to Shannon and said, hey, I'm so stoked we're going to be able to talk about purpose and connection. Let's schedule some time to do that. She said, I think I'm okay. Let's just get in there and do it. So here we are. I am completely unprepared here, coming here to speak about purpose and running a company about connection, and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We actually did have one, video Google Hangout call, so it's a little bit, but I would just love to talk a little bit about each of our companies. I mean, you're definitely Portland-based. I'm Bend-based. Fully is a much larger company than Sudara. So I'll just start by framing a little bit about what Sudara is, who we are, and what we do. We are a brand that's a certified Oregon B Corp, and basically we exist to help women out of sex trafficking in India. So it was built out of a trip that I took back with my husband in 2005. That was before sex trafficking or the term human trafficking was really on anyone's radar. That was before social business and B Corps had as much traction. This is over a decade ago, so I always feel like I'm dating myself when I say that. But 13 years ago, when I was in India and faced with this problem, when I came back, it was really like, oh, you want to help people? You need to start a nonprofit. That's what nonprofits do. They help people. Again, there were companies that were always doing good things at that time, Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, whatever, but this was before Tom Shoes hit the market and some of the one-for-one give-backs. And so there wasn't a lot of paradigm for using business to help people in a really direct way that wasn't just giving a percentage back or a monetary give back. Really what I'm most concerned about is supply chain and how do we honor people and the products that we're building. Because we're all building some sort of product here, right, through Built. And so I think that that's a component that I wanted to chat a little bit about. We talk a lot about like design-centered companies and the experience of the consumer and all of that. But I think what's front and center for me always is bringing it full circle and making sure that everyone is at the table, particularly the supply chain. And so again, Sudara started not with a passion for a specific product like a spirit. I can't wait to try the whiskey. I'm a whiskey girl. That's my favorite spirit. So that I'll look for that here in the coming months. But not necessarily being passionate about fashion. That really wasn't my gig. And really, I don't see Sudara as a fashion brand, even though we're an apparel brand. We basically make women's pajamas and loungewear. We do have a small kind of men's and children's component as well. But we started with a vision to want to help, and then how do we use sort of business to do so? We started as a nonprofit, but we've evolved, and over the last 3 years became a certified Oregon benefit corporation. So your company, again, is a lot more evolved than Sudara, has a lot more traction. So it's really fun to share the stage with you, a different product category, but that's who we are. We're basically an e-commerce brand out of Bend, although we're starting to have more distribution channels through wholesale and whatnot. But I would love to hear a little bit of how the story of Fully, began and how it's really the human element in your supply chain became substantial.
So, I'm a recovering CPA. Bean counters go. And for the first 30 some odd years of my life, I was creating shareholder value. I was making rich people richer and not really connecting to what was really happening on this planet and what needed to happen on this planet. Through some events that happened in my life, I got my shit together and realized that we're all in this together, and I want to do something different. I want to do something that's meaningful. And so you mentioned the B Corp thing, and what I wanted to create was kind of something between a nonprofit and a for-profit. I mean, we needed money. We needed to be sustainable to be able to affect the change we want to have. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure we were investing in making impact in other parts of the world besides just net income. So I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and she said, well, have you heard about this B Corp thing? Have you heard about this movement that's starting to happen that's this B Corp? And I was intrigued, and I started to learn a little bit more about it. And now we've been a certified B Corp for several years now. Happy to talk about B Corp stuff for anybody else who's interested after. But the business itself, I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to have the opportunity to give people tools to help them show up more fully as well. And so we've been around for about 12 years now, and we create height adjustable tables, funny looking chairs that encourage you to move around more. They don't look comfortable. And some of them aren't comfortable, actually, but comfort's a relative thing, and comfort is not necessarily good for the long term. So we're based in Portland and have an office in Europe now as well. We have a fully Europe office, and I'd like to say we're one of the innovators in this space of being more active, being more mindful, getting in your flow, and having products around you that can enable you to connect with yourself and others better.
That's beautiful. That's a great sales pitch that our chairs aren't that comfortable.
They really aren't.
This
is really nice and soft, though.
Yeah, that's a way to create customer loyalty. Although I did just hear recently, this was kind of startling, and I was like, oh, I need to get my shit together a little bit more. I heard some research around, for women particularly, that sitting is the new smoking. And so for women who sit more than 6 hours a day, there's like dire consequences in terms of like 4 to 5 years off of your life type of thing. And I was like, wow, that scared me. I don't even know if it's true, but it just scared me to say like, wow, I definitely sit at my desk more than I need to. So I'm getting a standing desk, and
awesome.
Maybe I'll get one of your uncomfortable chairs.
Right over on Southeast Water Avenue.
Your uncomfortable chairs will like make me get off my duff and actually move around.
It's tough love. It's good. It's good for you for the long term.
That's awesome. I would love to ask a little bit about your concept of consumerism, right? Because here we are talking about products that we all consume, and sometimes marketing, particularly, gets kind of the bad rap because we just want to force more stuff on people that they may not want to buy. And is that really responsible? Like, what do we think about our consumerism as we are products that we want people to consume? How do we balance that? What's your opinion?
I knew we should have practiced. I think we're living in a really exciting time right now where people are talking about it, and we as a community are trying to do something about it. I think the B Corps are just kind of part of this bigger social responsibility and using business as a force for good that is a movement now. Besides conscious capitalism, there's a lot of great authors and leaders out there as well talking about it. And I think it comes back to, we have a choice whenever we buy something. Do we need it? Why do we need it? And what am I going to do? And what is the company that I'm buying it from going to do with those proceeds? And I think we're living in a time right now where there's Amazon Prime, and I can order something right now. Yep, I can still order something right now, and it can be in my house tomorrow morning. And it's become this transaction-based thing that has lost heart. It's lost connection, and many times we don't realize or even care where these products are coming from and why we're doing what we're doing, and we get in this auto drive. And so I think it's important for us as B Corps and as people who just give a shit to slow down and think about things, think about our impact, think about, do I need this? What am I going to do with it? And what are the impacts of me on Mother Nature, the communities, the employees that are making these products? What are the ramifications of what I'm doing? And so I try and talk a lot more about that when I have engagements and I'm able to talk more about these things. And certainly the products that we sell, we have to create them, and we have to package them, and we have to ship them, and all of that has an impact. So studying each part of that chain to make sure that we're minimizing Our carbon footprint is really important, that all of our packaging is recyclable and all that kind of stuff is really important. So consumerism, I mean, we need things, and I'm certainly not saying we should all go live out in the woods and never buy anything. I mean, we need to thrive, and we need to know what joy is and know what love is, but I think we need to take the time also to understand what's happening every time we spend $1 too.
I think that's really important. I think sometimes as a B Corp or in sort of like the do-gooder section of business or whatever, I really look forward to a day when we don't have to say, oh, good business or social business, but that all business would just be damn good, right? That we don't have to like delineate, oh, that's evil business and this is good business or whatever. But oftentimes I feel like I've been in business settings where B Corps and businesses like ours sort of get this like, oh, that's kind of bleeding heart or whatever. And we do have to take a hit on our margins sometimes, because sometimes it's more expensive to have recyclable packaging and all of this kind of stuff. So how have you balanced this idea of consumerism with profitability and, you know, shareholders and investors and selling them on this story? What does that look like for you? Because
it's a dance and it's an art, and there's no easy answer. We're fortunate enough to not have any outside capital right now. I'm scared of mission alignment, values alignment, and it's hard to find capital that really understands why we're doing what we're doing. But it's a dance and it's not easy, and we are undeniably a for-profit company, and we need that gas in the gas tank to be able to make the impact we want to make. But we're a different kind of company in that we don't have the traditional kind of financial statements that most companies do. Like you'll see a balance sheet and an income statement, and in our company we have impact statements as well, like what's happening with our carbon footprint, what's happening, how many hours have we given to the community based on dividing that by our revenue to make sure we're continuing to make bigger and bigger impacts. So we're creating the metrics as we go to make sure that we are the kind of company that we're proud of being in the community and with our employees and with Mother Nature. And it's kind of fun to be trailblazing this. As a CPA, you have a balance sheet, you have an income statement, you have a statement of cash flows, and it's fun to kind of create these other things that are actually more important as to how we're doing rather than just the number of dollars in our bank account.
That's really
How about you?
Well, that's so interesting that neither one of us have taken outside capital. I would have assumed that a company of your size would have just had to grow and scale. So I think that's super interesting and inspiring. And one of the things I think that's missing sort of in the conversation, I mean, people touch on it all the time about funding, and we know that there are, less than 7% of funding go to female-owned companies, less than 2% go to, minority. Like, I have 2 strikes against me. I'm Latina and female. Like, I'm fucked when it comes to funding, or whatever. So I think that it's really interesting when we talk about, you can grow and scale and make a profit. But I also think it begs the question of where are funding vehicles for these companies? So we have rhetoric out of one side of our mouth. It's like, we want to do good, we want to do better, we want to be conscious consumerism, we want to do this. But then we have really arcane models of funding. And even though I've been to conferences, SOCAP, and San Francisco is a big one that's happening next month. I was there last year. And so we're talking about, there are impact investing funds, there are this, there are that. But a lot of the actual vehicles or the term sheets that I've seen, at least, are very similar to just the other kind of outdated VC structures out there. And so I'm with you. I feel like there's a huge opportunity for anyone in the room to really meet that need, funding for companies that are concerned about mission alignment and whatnot.
Amen. And I'm going to second that. And not only do I think it's up to all of us, I'm a proud new investor in Freeland. And I think we as a Portland and an Oregon, and I'm sorry, Bend is certainly, I consider Oregon, we have an opportunity to invest in each other too. That's part of the thing about the amount of EBITDA that our company generates. A certain percentage of that I'm putting back into the community in companies like yours, companies like Jill's, so that we can create something here that is special, and we don't really need as much outside capital anymore because we've got all the capital we need.
I love that. I was just talking to one of the gals over at Hatch, Oregon recently too, and how the community-based funding really needs to get more press. So just giving a plug and a shout out there, because I think you're right. Gone are the days where we just need to look to rich people and help rich people get richer by their, umpteen X return on funds. And so really going just to the average person and the common man who cares about our state, who cares about business, who cares about planet, I think is really the way to go. So that's super exciting.
I hear you. One of the things that I heard you talk about before when we did have a chance to connect was talking about kind of the human connection, the human part of the process. I mean, obviously, the kind of business you're running, is based on something extremely human. And I talked a little bit about it, in terms of the Amazon generation we're living in, and we're trying to do Prime all the time. Are we losing that kind of humanity in business? And I just love your story. I love what you're doing. And I'd love to just talk a little bit about bringing humanity back into what we're doing, because I think we had a really good conversation about that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like so much of it is storytelling. I mean, without sounding very cliche or whatever, because there's definitely that resurgence in building your brand, and it's all about storytelling, and not in a weird slick schmarmy way, but in just a very authentic way that says, you know what, human lives are messy. We're all messy. I really appreciated Eric's just candor of yeah, we failed and this is what, and but that's what the world needs more of. The world doesn't need more of, oh, I was so successful and maybe you could be that way too one day. Nobody wants that, right? So it's so endearing. Yeah, right? And we all do. I mean, he's just brave enough to admit it. But I think we can all look at our lives and just say, wow, it hasn't gone totally according to plan. And sometimes that sucks, and sometimes that's really good. And so when I think about the human element, we're dealing with women out of the brothels in India. That has not gone according to anyone's plan. And it's interesting because so often we can look at the women and the victims and the survivors and the kids, and then we're not really talking about the brokenness of humanity that puts them in that situation. We're not talking about all the people buying the sex and why and what's broken in them that they have to sort of abuse others. We're not talking about the sexual violence against women and children. Thankfully, in this last year of the Me Too movement, that's definitely become more to the forefront, which I'm so thankful. But the 12 years prior to that I've been in this space, and the hundreds and thousands of years prior that women and children have been sexually victimized, has sort of been a huge stain. And so I think that talking about the human element and really honest terms that really has nothing to do with the product that you're selling, right? That kind of comes around. And I think the ripple effect is that you will likely sell product or whatever you're trying to do as a result. But really connecting with human beings on just that primal level, I think is what we're missing. I mean, I had a kind of over a 3-hour drive coming over the mountains, and so the whole time I'm listening to NPR and the whole Kavanaugh thing, and it's oh my gosh, I know, that's been so hard the last 2 years in politics and whatever, but so often I just feel like we're not having honest conversations in so much of our life. Whether it's in business or, it's just we're on a side and we have a stand and we have an agenda or whatever. But to me, the human connection and why it's so refreshing what you're doing with your company and at Fully is let's just be honest with who we are and not just, peacock and try and be more than we are or whatever. Let's just be super honest and approachable with each other. And if we can bring that into business, that's beautiful. Then we don't all have to say, we're a B Corp and go through this big certification process to do it. I mean, we kind of have to right now, but I look forward to a day when that's no longer needed. Maybe that's sort of Pollyanna of me.
More Pollyanna, please. Definitely. So I don't want us to monopolize all of the time up here. I could ask a gazillion questions about Sudara. Do you guys want to have any specific questions about this at all? Awesome.
What tips could you give for practicing conscious capitalism while starting or getting a business going?
Do you want to start, and then I'll follow up?
listen to your heart. You know what the right thing is to do already. I really loved your answer earlier about charting your own course with your own stars. We can get caught up in what's happening and in business and trying to catch up and get ahead of others. Conscious capitalism starts with consciousness. And so I think just listening to your body and listening to your heart is my best advice.
Yeah, I think, period. I mean, that's all that said. In a really practical way, before even starting a business, I think practicing it in your own life, right? And being really intentional about how you consume as an individual, and then starting the conversation with friends. I think, we're going into the holiday season, which is like, the big Q4 in retail, and we're all wanting to do all this stuff. And I think it's really important every day, and admitting that we don't have it perfect. I mean, just because I've started a company like this doesn't mean I never go into Target and have to grab something, or, God forbid, Walmart, whatever. Like, there's just times where I'm like, oh my gosh, my kid's sick, it's right here, I better go grab that thing. So I would say also don't let, great be the enemy of good, because sometimes it's so overwhelming when you're like, oh, I can't do everything right. And even though you have all this stuff in your head and then you feel like a failure, just do one more thing right. Just make sure your coffee's clean and direct, and buy clean chocolate, and then buy local as much as you can. And then, just start having it as a habit and a lifestyle. I think is really important, and that's part of being conscious and just living it before you try and export it as a business.
How are you able to have your work and job here and maintain your business somewhere else?
Me specifically, both of us? Yeah. Okay. So how do we have a life and a family here in the U.S. and then work somewhere else? So, India is where we have our partnering. So Center's on a small staff there. And I will not, fool you. It's challenging. It's really hard. When I first started, I was married, but we didn't have kids yet. And so I had a lot more flexibility of hopping on a plane and flying back and forth and that whole thing. And then we got pregnant with twins. So that was different. And I wasn't able myself to just hop on a plane. And so at the time we were able to have staff, and then, I was able to go because the twins were at an age where they were kind of weaned and they weren't tied to mom for food. And then I got pregnant again. So having staff over there is really important. And then we work with primarily Indian national organizations. So Sudara doesn't have sewing centers in India. We work really closely and vet out our partners there. And then we have a small staff of 3 Indian nationals as well, like a director and a trainer and someone who helps with logistics. Because our core value is partnership. So it's a balance for sure. And that's how we do it.
You mentioned trying to make everyday decisions about purchasing products that are locally made or organic, etc. Generally, those products are more accessible to people with higher incomes. How do you propose that in the future we move towards accessibility of those products to all people? Because there's definitely a large population of people who maybe they just buy not organic, or they buy Winco food or whatever it is just because that's simply what they can afford.
I love this question so much. I think everyone sort of heard that. At Sudara, that was really front and center because I am privileged in that I went to college and, I had things that a lot of other people don't, but I'm not from a wealthy background. My parents are very low middle class and didn't go to college. I'm the first college graduate and all of that. So it's really important to me to make sure that doing good is not for the elite. People tease Whole Foods, whole paycheck, that kind of stuff. And that can be true. And so you can have only wealthy people who can eat healthy and only wealthy people who can buy these products. And so I think that's a really fair criticism of the space. And at the same time, it is more expensive to do things well. Our supply chain, we paid probably double what, lounge pants like this at Target or wherever you're going to get. And so there's so much, but we made a deliberate move to say, okay, our pants are around $50. And most people who say I can't afford that, this and that, I was like, well, do you spend $50 on any product? Like, how much do you spend on jeans, shoes? And it's like, there's like so much backpedaling. Even college students, they'll spend like a ridiculous amount of money on whatever. And so I think some of that is just priorities and education. So with Sudara and our products, we are intentionally in the slow fashion camp, and we chose utilitarian products on purpose. So pajamas, lounge pants, loungewear, those are not fast fashion. Those are not seasonally, whatever. You're gonna wear them all year around. You're gonna wear them to bed. You can wear them on the weekends. You can wear them out like I am. So you're really going to use them as part of your wardrobe. So when you go, what is the net usage pennies per wear of this pant compared to something else, I think you would really find that it's a wise investment. So it's choosing to buy less and to consume better and to make sure it's something that you'll use as part of your life. I think that's really what a lifestyle brand should be. I know people throw that around, and I think the term's gotten sort of anemic and watered down. But that's how I would say to do it. Now, there are certain brands where I'm like, oh, brother, this product's like $400. Like, who can buy that, to your point? But hopefully, as we continue to drive even the big brands to have an ethical supply chain, that's where things start shifting and the conversation gets much more interesting.
And I think it's up to us. It's up to all of us to do our part. When we released our electric height adjustable desk, which is Jarvis, in 2012, at that time it was $1,200 and up to get an electric height adjustable desk. And it's making things more accessible and not charging a price because we can charge a price, but to try to make our product available at more and more accessible price points. The adjustable height desk market has evolved a lot since we got into it. And I would like to think because of us continuing to try and make our products available to a wider and wider swath of the population, the prices are down about 85% from when we first started. So it's up to us. It's not, and it's not about maximizing profit, it's about maximizing impact. We have time for one more?
One more question.
Okay.
What is one thing you wish you would have done in the process of becoming a business owner?
What is one thing, so you guys can hear, what is one thing we would have done in the process? Can you repeat one more time?
Of becoming a business owner.
Of becoming a business owner. What's one thing we would have done differently?
Wow, there's probably a million things I would have done differently.
Yeah, you gotta just pick one though.
Yeah, there's a long list of things I might have done differently. But you know what, at the same time, I just feel like I'm, again, maybe a little Pollyanna, but like things happen for a reason, and a lot of my failures, I've learned from those. And had I done everything perfect, like I wouldn't have those learnings. I was really probably overly trusting in the beginning, particularly of our partners in India. So we had like fabric stolen from us, like people just being shystery, people knocking off our product and basically selling something very similar at, cost plus or whatever. And so I could say, yeah, I'd be more cynical because that wouldn't have happened, but I don't want to be more cynical. Like, that's not me. I want to be wise. And so I think that following your heart, really, sometimes you'll get burned. That's just part of life, right? But doing it in a wise way, in a way that's really authentic to you, and having, of course, mentors around you and people so that you're not going it alone. So there's a ton I would have done differently, but at the same time, then I would be less mature and I would have remained naive, I think.
Beautiful. I hate to say this again, but I wish I would have listened to my heart more. A lot of people, when you start a business, and I'm so glad we have some high school students here today to hear some of this as well. When you start a business, everybody's going to tell you what to do. Everybody's going to tell you how they would do it. And I think it's important to hear those things. And that can help chart your course, but you chart your course. So listen to your heart, listen to your real passions, and go with it, because there's a reason they're there.